Her scope stayed fixed, her breath shallow, each second carving itself into her. The compound was alive now, like an animal stirring in its den, and her team was about to walk into the jaws. She could have spoken more. She could have told them what her instincts screamed, that this wasn't just an ambush, it was a reenactment of something she knew too well. But her voice caught, because if she said it, she'd have to tell them why she knew. She'd have to drag her brother's shadow into the open. Her hand tightened around the stock. The leather of her glove creaked. "Cooper status," the commander whispered in her ear. She forced her tone flat. "Movement continues, multiple positions, north and east." "Copy." The men moved like dark silhouettes against darker terrain, hugging walls, checking corners. They thought they were unseen, but Lena saw the subtle gleam of scopes glinting back at her from the compound. Predators waiting. Her chest ached. The desert air was thin, biting, yet she felt like she was drowning. She remembered another ridge, another scope, another night when she was still just a civilian, listening to static crackle on the radio in her parents' kitchen. Her mother's face pale as the words came, missing in action. Ambush, hostile fire. She had dropped her glass. It shattered across the floor, shards catching light like tiny stars. But the silence after the words, that was the moment she never escaped. And now here she was, looking at the same silence brewing again. One of the younger soldiers, the lieutenant who had tried small talk in the truck, shifted too far, his boot scraping stone, a sound too sharp in the stillness. Through her scope, Lena saw a figure on the compound wall tense, a hand raised, a signal. "Contact," she whispered, but the first shot cracked before her word was finished. The desert exploded. Muzzle flashes lit the compound like fireflies. Gunfire ripped through the night, echoing across stone and sand. The team dove for cover, shouts tangling over comms. Ambush, suppressing fire. "Man down, medic, medic." Her pulse surged, but her hand stayed steady. She swung her rifle, sighted, fired. One hostile down, another ducked. She shifted, fired again. The recoil pressed into her shoulder, familiar, grounding. Her world shrank to the scope, the targets, the rhythm. But even as she fired, she knew. This wasn't clean. This wasn't control. The enemy hadn't been surprised. They were orchestrating this, pulling the strings, waiting for every mistake. The commander's voice cut through. "Cooper, keep them off us. We need 5 minutes to regroup." "Copy." 5 minutes. She could buy that, she had before, but at what cost? Her mind flickered to the photo in her pocket, her brother's grin. "He said once before shipping out, it's not about glory, Lena. It's about the ones no one remembers. The ones who don't get statues or medals. That's who you fight for." She squeezed the trigger again, jaw clenched. For him, for them. A shadow moved near the eastern wall, crouching low, setting something on the ground. Not a weapon aimed at the team, something else. A bag, a device. Her stomach dropped. She knew that shape. She'd seen it in training slides, in classified reports whispered between commanders. "Device, east wall," she snapped. "IED remote set." The commander swore, ordering the men to shift positions. But already the enemy fire intensified, pinning them down, forcing them to stay close to the walls, right in range. She aimed for the man crouching by the device. He moved fast, ducking, shielded by stone. She fired, clipped the wall near his shoulder, adjusted, fired again. The scope trembled with her breath, sweat sliding down her temple. The man vanished into shadow. "Lost visual," she muttered. And then the radio crackled with something that didn't belong. A voice, male, calm, too calm. "You should not be here." Not one of theirs. Not an insurgent screaming slogans. This voice was measured, deliberate, speaking in English laced with an accent she couldn't place. The comms went silent for half a beat. The men froze. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs. The voice continued. "You walk into graves that are not yours, go home." She swallowed, her throat dry. No one spoke. Then the commander forced steel into his voice. "Stay off our channel." Cooper, eyes up. "Where is he?" She scanned desperately. Nothing but shadows, flashes, smoke. Her scope caught only fragments, a flicker of cloth, a glint of glass, nothing solid. The voice came again. "We remember the ones you forget." Her blood turned cold. Because those words, they were her brother's words, almost exact. For a second she couldn't breathe. The desert tilted beneath her. That phrase had lived in her house, in her heart. How could some enemy voice be throwing it back at her now? Her finger hovered on the trigger, rigid, refusing to move. "Cooper," the commander barked. "Where is he?" She blinked hard, forcing her eyes back into focus. I don't have him. Not yet." The silence after her admission was heavier than gunfire. She was the eye. She wasn't supposed to lose sight. She wasn't supposed to hesitate. But she had. And beneath the chaos, beneath the desert's howl, a thought pressed into her mind like a knife. This wasn't just a mission. It wasn't coincidence. Whoever was inside that compound knew something about her, about him, about the voices she carried. And if she didn't face it, her team wouldn't make it out. What if the enemy knew her better than her own team did? That thought gnawed at her as the firefight raged below. Her rifle barked again and another figure fell, crumpling into the dust. But it wasn't enough. The enemy wasn't breaking. They weren't panicking like they should have. No, they were controlling the tempo, directing it. The men she watched over were pinned. Their voices tight over comms, their breaths ragged between bursts of fire. She could hear fear beginning to crack through the edges of their discipline. Suppressing East, running low. "Medic, get your hands here now. He's bleeding out." "We're boxed in, Commander," they're circling. Her pulse hammered harder with each word. She shifted her scope, scanning for the voice. That haunting, deliberate voice that had slipped through their comms like a knife. But the desert played tricks with sound. Wind carried echoes, bouncing off walls and stone, making ghosts out of shadows. Then another whisper, clear in her ear. "Lena." She froze. No one here knew her first name. Not like that. Not spoken with that eerie familiarity. She almost ripped her earpiece out, almost, but instead she pressed it tighter. "Identify yourself." Her voice low, dangerous. Silence, then a soft laugh. Not mocking, not cruel, just knowing. The commander's voice cut across. "Cooper, talk to me. What's going on?" "Nothing," she lied quickly, eyes up, focused. She couldn't tell him, couldn't tell any of them. If she admitted what she'd heard, they'd question her, doubt her. In a fight like this, hesitation was a death sentence. So she bore it alone. Her finger squeezed the trigger again, dropping another hostile, one less shadow. But as she lined up the next, her vision blurred, her breath stumbled. She could almost hear her brother's voice behind that other one, layered like an echo. The same cadence, the same way he used to call her name before a game, before he shipped out, before everything broke. She blinked hard, forcing tears back down into the pit of herself. Not now, not ever. Another explosion shook the ground. The enemy had shifted, moving heavier on the west side. She relayed quickly, voice clipped. "3 moving west wall. Stay low, don't expose." The team adjusted. They trusted her eyes, even if she doubted herself right now. Minutes bled into each other. She fired, reloaded, fired again. Every shot precise, mechanical, almost detached. But inside, a storm was building. Not fear, no, something worse. Recognition. These weren't random insurgents. Their movements were disciplined, coordinated, too professional. And the voice knew her. She couldn't say how, she couldn't prove it, but every instinct screamed it was true. The older soldier, the one with the scar, the one who hadn't laughed at her silence earlier, broke across comms, voice ragged. "Commander, this isn't a hit and run. They're digging in. They want us stuck." The commander growled back. "We finish this. Push forward. Cooper, give us openings." She adjusted her scope, biting back the urge to protest. Her brother had died because someone pushed forward when they should have pulled back. She wanted to scream it, but the words sat heavy in her throat, stone-like. She lined up the shot anyway. Her rifle cracked, one hostile dropped, another scrambled back into cover. The team advanced inches at a time. Dust rose around them, clinging to sweat and blood. Then over her comms another voice, not the commander, not one of theirs. That same calm tone sliding into her ear like it belonged there. You don't have to carry them, Lena. Not all of them. Some voices should be forgotten. Her skin crawled. Her hands shook, just barely betraying her. She whispered without meaning to, "Who are you?" The commander barked. "Cooper, say again." Target neutralized. She covered quickly, forcing steadiness. But inside, her chest burned. She wasn't imagining this. Someone on the other side had her name, her history, her private grief. Someone was reaching into her silence and twisting it. And she had no idea why. Gunfire roared again, pulling her back. A figure sprinted into her scope, too fast, too close to the team. She fired instinctively. The man spun and collapsed mid-step, weapon skittering across sand. Her breath hitched, because as his face turned toward the sky, eyes wide even in death, she saw something carved into his uniform sleeve. Not a symbol she recognized, not a flag, but letters. 5 letters. Her brother's name. Her blood iced over. She blinked once, twice, trying to deny it, but it was there. Sloppy, hand-stitched, but undeniable. His name right where no enemy should ever carry it. Her hands trembled so badly, she had to set the rifle down for half a second. The comms erupted again, shouts, commands, panic, but she barely heard them. Because the only question in her head was, how? How could his name be here, thousands of miles from where he fell, years after his death? The commander yelled something. The lieutenant's voice cracked, begging for direction. The medic swore, working on a man down. And Lena Cooper sat alone on the ridge, heart hammering, her silence deeper than the gunfire. She thought she had carried her brother into this mission. But now it felt like he had been waiting here for her all along. What do you do when the battlefield feels personal? Lena pressed her cheek against the rifle stock again, trying to steady herself. But her mind would quiet. That stitched name on the dead man's sleeve burned in her vision, more haunting than the muzzle flashes still sparking across the compound. The men below were shouting, pinned, desperate. Their words blurred into each other. "We need cover. He's bleeding out. Ammo's almost gone." Her duty was clear: keep them alive, hold the ridge, call the shots. But the silence between those voices, the cracks where only her breathing lived, that was where the enemy's voice crept in. "You see now, don't you?" it whispered through the comms. Not yelling, not taunting, calm, almost gentle. "Your ghosts are not buried, they walk with us." She clenched her teeth. "How do you know that name?" she muttered under her breath. The commander snapped. "Cooper, repeat. Did you see something?" Negative, still scanning. She forced her voice to steel. The truth clawed at her throat. She wanted to scream it. His name is here, his memory is here, someone's playing with us, but she didn't. Not yet. She couldn't afford the distraction. If she cracked, the whole team would. The scarred veteran's voice cut in, grim. "They're not breaking off, Commander. Feels like they're testing us." Testing, that was the word. Lena felt it too. The enemy didn't want to kill them quickly. They wanted to see how they'd respond, how she would respond. Her scope slid across the compound again. In a dark window, a shadow shifted, just for a heartbeat, enough for her to see the outline of a man standing still as if he knew she was watching. She centered him in her crosshairs. Her finger brushed the trigger. But he didn't move, didn't duck, didn't raise a weapon. He just stood like a statue facing the ridge, facing her. And then her earpiece buzzed, his voice again. "Do you really want to know what happened that night, the night your brother never came home?" Her heart seized. She fired. The window shattered, the figure disappeared, but there was no body, no cry, just dust drifting like smoke. The commander barked, "Nice shot, Cooper, keep it up." But Lena knew she hadn't hit him. Whoever he was, he had wanted her to look, wanted her to hear. The team moved again, struggling through the hail of gunfire. The lieutenant crawled to cover, dragging another man with him. His young voice cracked over comms. "We're not gonna make it like this. Someone's gotta clear the nest." The commander snapped back, "We're holding, Lieutenant. Cooper, we need that overwatch tight. Don't let them flank." She answered automatic, "Copy." But her eyes kept drifting back to that shattered window, that phantom voice echoing in her ear. What did he mean? What else was there to know about her brother's death? The military had been clear: ambush, casualties, end of report. She lived with that emptiness for years, carrying his silence like a wound. But what if it hadn't been the truth? Her breath grew uneven. She tried to bury the thought, push it down beneath training, beneath discipline. But once a question takes root, it doesn't let go. Another burst of gunfire dragged her back. She shifted scope, dropped two more hostiles. Each pull of the trigger steadied her hands but not her mind. The older veteran broke across comms again. "Commander, we're sitting ducks here. Cooper can't kill 'em all." "She's holding the line," the commander barked back. "We keep moving." The scarred man's silence afterward said more than his words, a silence Lena understood too well. Through the scope she caught sight of the lieutenant again. He was pale, eyes wide, lips moving in a rush of prayer. Just a kid, barely shaving. And still here he was, bleeding into the dirt, whispering promises to a God who might not answer. Something in Lena's chest twisted. She remembered her brother at that age, so full of reckless faith, believing he could protect everyone. He hadn't. And now she was supposed to do what he couldn't. Her earpiece buzzed again, that voice smooth as ever. "You carry too much, Lena. One day you'll realize the dead are not yours to save." Her grip tightened on the rifle until her knuckles ached. "Shut up," she hissed. The commander's voice overlapped. "Say again, Cooper." She shut her eyes, drew one long breath. "Target neutralized," she lied again. Her lies were piling now. Every one of them pressed heavy, but she had no choice. If she let the truth slip, if she admitted the voice was talking to her, the team would break. And if they broke, they'd die. The firefight dragged on, endless, grinding. Her bullets thinned the enemy lines, but more shadows replaced them. Dust clung to her sweat, grit filling her teeth. Her stomach knotted, empty. The night stretched, brittle with tension. And then silence. The gunfire slowed, then stopped. Her breath stilled. Her scope searched frantically. The compound lay quiet again. Shadows melted back into walls. The only sound was the wind hissing across the ridge. The team below shifted uneasily. "Commander, did we push them back?" No answer. The radio crackled with static, and then the voice, smooth, calm, direct. "Leave now, or stay and learn what happened to your brother." Every muscle in Lena's body went rigid. Her vision tunneled. The commander snarled into comms, "Who the hell is this? Identify yourself." But Lena knew the words weren't meant for him. They were meant for her. The scarred soldier whispered, almost to himself, "What the hell did he just say?" Lena's heart pounded. She forced her voice flat. "Ignore it. They're playing mind games." But inside, her chest was shaking apart, because she knew this wasn't random, this wasn't just war. Someone in that compound had answers she wasn't supposed to hear. And for the first time in years, Lena wasn't sure if she wanted to fire another shot. She wanted to walk down there, into the dust, into the danger, into the truth. Why was she trembling now when silence was all that surrounded her? Not from cold, not from fear, but from the echo of a sound that hadn't been made yet, the sound of a choice. The mountains around them had gone dark, shadows pooling like ink in the crevices. The team had moved into a ruined compound, stone walls broken and jagged, a shell of what once housed families. Children might have played here once. Now, only the faint whistle of wind filled the air. She crouched low behind a collapsed wall, rifle balanced across her knees. Her gloves trembled slightly and she tightened her grip. No one noticed, or if they did, they looked away, pretending not to. That was the bond of soldiers, to see each other's breaking points and silently hold them like secrets. The sergeant gave hand signals, sweeping arcs of fingers, and the team spread out through the ruins. Each shadow seemed to breathe. Each doorway whispered. She swallowed against the dryness in her throat. Then a sound, a voice. It was faint, fragile, a child's whimper barely audible over the wind. Her heart lurched. She froze, every nerve alive. She had to have imagined it. The sergeant's hand snapped up, "Stop." Everyone listened. The night seemed to lean closer. There it was again, a soft cry. Her chest tightened. She knew that sound. Memory slammed into her, sudden and merciless. The way her younger brother had cried, clutching her leg during storms when they were kids. The memory she had locked away during basic training when she swore she would carry strength, not weakness. But weakness was exactly what this sound summoned back. The sergeant's whisper was harsh. It could be bait, stay sharp. Bait. That word crushed the air from her lungs. She wanted to move, to crawl toward the sound, to believe that innocence could survive even here. But training was clear. Voices in the dark could lead you into traps. The enemy knew mercy was a weapon. Her eyes searched the shadows. A narrow opening in the stone. Behind it, the whimpering continued. "Permission to check," she whispered. The sergeant shook his head, hard, negative. She looked down at her rifle, the black steel glinting under faint starlight. She had sworn never to let personal ghosts dictate her choices, but her fingers clenched, betraying her. The team moved past the wall, boots crunching softly. One by one, they disappeared into the deeper ruin. She stayed, just a breath longer, just one more second. She pressed her ear against the stone. It wasn't just one voice. There were two, maybe three, hushed, broken, human. Her body shook, not from fear, from knowing what the right thing should be, and knowing the cost of it. "Forget it," she whispered to herself. But she didn't move. She waited until the others' footsteps had faded, swallowed by distance. Then she slipped through the gap. The air was damp, smelling of dust and charred wood. She lowered her rifle and slid forward on her stomach, dragging her pack. The cries grew clearer, stifled sobs. Her chest ached with each sound. Her flashlight stayed off. She used touch, fingertips brushing the dirt floor, eyes adjusting to faint traces of starlight spilling through cracks in the roof. And then she saw them. Three figures, small. Two girls, one boy, no older than 10. Their faces streaked with dirt, clothes torn. They huddled against the wall, eyes wide with animal terror. She froze. The rifle was still in her hands. To them, she was another shadow in a place already haunted. Her voice came out softer than she imagined. "It's okay." The children flinched. The boy buried his face in his knees. She removed her helmet, set it down. Then, slowly, she placed her rifle flat on the ground, pushing it away. "It's okay," she said again, her voice cracking. "I won't hurt you." Her chest tightened as one of the girls peeked up, tears glinting in her eyes. It hit her like a strike. She remembered being that girl. She remembered holding onto hope in a world that had none to give. And she remembered when her brother didn't survive. Her throat closed. A distant sound snapped her back. Footsteps, heavy, not her team. Her breath hitched. She grabbed her rifle, pulling it close, eyes darting to the entrance. Shadows moved against the moonlight. 2, maybe 3 figures. "Enemy!" The children whimpered, pressing tighter against the wall. Her heart raced, pounding in her ears. She had a choice: leave them and rejoin her team, or stay and shield them, risking exposure. Her training screamed one answer. Her heart screamed another. And then she made the choice. She crouched in front of the children, one hand on the rifle, the other raised, urging them to stay silent. Their breathing slowed, shallow and desperate. The shadows outside grew larger. Voices muttered in a language she couldn't fully catch. Boots scuffed on stone. One figure stepped inside. Her finger curled around the trigger. She could feel her pulse in it. But something in her stilled. A deep, raw whisper inside, "Don't, not yet." So she waited. The figure moved closer, weapons slung, scanning the room with a flashlight. The beam swept over the cracked floor, the broken walls, but not the corner where they crouched. Not yet. The children didn't move, didn't breathe. Their trust was sudden, fragile, absolute. She held her breath with them. The beam swept closer, closer, her heartbeat thundered. Then a shout from outside. The figure turned, muttered back, and walked out. The light disappeared, the footsteps faded. She released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her body shook violently, adrenaline ripping through her veins. She wanted to collapse. Instead, she turned back to the children. "It's okay," she whispered, more to herself than to them. Their eyes clung to her, wide, searching. They didn't know if she was safety or another kind of danger, but for this moment, they hadn't been abandoned. And she realized something sharp, cutting. She hadn't either. For years, she had carried ghosts, voices of the forgotten. Tonight, for the first time, she had chosen to answer them. Outside, the night grew colder. The mission pressed on. The team would notice her absence soon, and she would have to choose again. But for now, she stayed. Just one moment longer. How do you return to the mission when your heart has already chosen another battlefield? That was the question burning in her chest as she crouched in the ruins with 3 trembling children pressed against the wall. Their eyes reflected something she hadn't seen in a long time: raw, unfiltered trust. Fragile, dangerous, a trust that demanded more from her than orders or strategy. The night outside was alive with whispers and movement. She could hear the team's faint, calm chatter crackling in her earpiece, clipped voices echoing urgency. They had moved further into the compound, searching for their objective. They thought she was with them. They didn't know she had slipped away. Not yet. Her breath slowed, deliberate, steadying herself. She had minutes before her absence became a problem. Maybe seconds. The smallest girl shifted closer, fingers clutching the edge of her vest. The touch was so light she almost didn't feel it, but when she did, her throat tightened. The girl's hand was trembling, yet reaching for something she didn't even have words for. "I can't stay," the soldier whispered, voice cracking, "but I won't leave you." The words hurt, because she didn't know if they were true. She glanced toward the gap in the wall, clear for now. The enemy patrol had passed, but there would be more. There were always more. The boy lifted his head. Dirt streaked his face, his eyes hollow, older than his years. "Are you like them?" he whispered in broken English. Her chest clenched, she shook her head. "No." The boy studied her face, searching for something he could believe. His lips trembled. "Then why do you have their eyes?" She didn't understand at first. Then it struck her. To him, soldiers were one and the same: boots, weapons, helmets, commands. His world had blurred them into one shape: destroyers. And here she was, another shape with a rifle. Her mouth opened, but no words came. How could she explain the difference when uniforms looked the same, when death sounded the same no matter who carried the weapon? Her earpiece crackled again, snapping her back. "Unit 2, report position." Her heart lurched. That was her call sign. She stared at the children, then pressed her earpiece closer. Her voice was steady when she answered. "Unit 2, moving north flank, clear so far." A lie. There was silence, then the sergeant's voice, clipped and sharp. "Stay tight, eyes open." She exhaled slowly. The weight of the lie pressed down on her, heavier than the rifle on her shoulder. She had just bought herself a little time, nothing more. The children were staring at her, wide-eyed. They didn't understand her words, but they felt the tremor in her voice. "Listen," she whispered, lowering herself to their level. "I need you to be quiet, no matter what. Do you understand?" Two nods, one hesitant blink. She reached into her pack, pulling out a small metal flask. Water. She unscrewed the cap and handed it to the boy first. He took it with shaking hands, sipping carefully, then passing it to the girls. When the youngest drank, water spilling down her chin, a strange warmth swelled in her chest. Something human, something almost forgotten. But it was dangerous. Every second here put the mission at risk. Every second here risked them all. She rose, scanning the shadows again. The patrol could return. Her team could double back. She had no plan for what came next. Her mind replayed her sergeant's words earlier. Bait. That single word cut through everything. What if this was exactly that? A trap woven with children's tears. A setup meant to break someone like her, someone who couldn't walk past innocence without bleeding inside. Her hand clenched around the rifle. She had to be sure. She looked at the boy again. "Are you alone here?" His gaze dropped to the floor. A pause too long. Her pulse quickened. "Tell me," she urged. He didn't answer. His silence screamed louder than words. She crouched closer, lowering her tone. "Who brought you here?" Finally, the boy's lips parted. His voice was so faint she almost missed it. "They said if we stayed quiet, they'd let us live." The words hollowed her out. The children weren't bait. They were leftovers, left behind like broken tools, tucked into the ruins with promises that meant nothing. Her chest burned. She wanted to scream, to rip the night apart with rage, but she swallowed it, forcing her breath steady. Outside, a sudden burst of gunfire rattled the silence. Her head snapped toward the sound. Not far, her team. Her earpiece flared again, frantic voices cutting in. "Contact, multiple hostiles, north sector, move, move." Her blood ran cold. That was where they thought she was, the north flank. The lie. Her stomach twisted. She had pulled them into the fight without her, a gap in the line because she wasn't there. She looked back at the children, their eyes wide with fear at the sound of gunfire, their small bodies trembling. Her choice was tearing her apart. Leave them and she could rejoin her team, maybe save lives. Stay with them and she would betray her unit, but save something far more fragile. Her hands shook on the rifle. And then she heard another sound. From deeper inside the ruin. Footsteps slow, heavy. Not hers, not the children's. Her heart froze. She swung her rifle toward the darkness, finger tense on the trigger. A shadow moved, broad-armed enemy. She dropped low, body shielding the children, her breath ragged. The man stepped closer, weapon raised, scanning. He hadn't seen them yet. Her mind raced. Fire and she risked exposing them all. Stay silent and he would find them in seconds. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The boy grabbed her sleeve, eyes wide, silently begging. Her finger twitched on the trigger. She could end him. One shot, but that shot would echo. Others would come. Her lungs burned. She couldn't decide fast enough. And then, the soldier turned his head, distracted by the distant firefight. He muttered, cursing under his breath, and moved toward the sound. Toward her team. She wanted to breathe relief. Instead, horror choked her. She had let him go, straight into her unit's path. Her chest caved under the weight of it. One choice, and she had spared him but doomed them. The children clung to her arms. The youngest buried her face in her vest, muffling sobs. Her throat burned as she whispered to herself, "What have I done?" The firefight outside raged louder, shouts, explosions, the sky lit with distant flashes. And she was trapped in the ruin, torn between two wars, one with rifles, one with ghosts. For the first time in years she felt small again, powerless. But in that powerlessness, a vow began to take shape. She couldn't save everyone, but she could save someone. Her team or these children. The question was no longer what the mission required. The question was what her soul could live with. How do you decide which voices deserve saving when every voice sounds like your own? That was the storm tearing through her, as the ruin quaked with distant gunfire. The children clung to her vest. Their tiny fingers felt like anchors, heavy, fragile, unrelenting. Every time she tried to move, their grip reminded her of the weight she carried now. Her earpiece screamed with chaos. Two down, we need support. Flank cut off, where the hell is Unit 2? Her blood froze, they meant her. Her chest caved as she pressed against the stone wall, trembling. The firefight wasn't far, flashes lighting the night like silent lightning. She could almost see her brothers in arms, pinned under fire because she wasn't there, because she had lied. She pressed her forehead against the cold stone, whispering through clenched teeth, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. The boy tugged at her sleeve, his face pale in the dim starlight. Are you leaving us? The words gutted her. Her throat closed and she shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her wide, restless, pulled in two directions. Another blast shook the compound. The little girl whimpered, pressing her face into her vest. Her rifle weighed on her like judgment. She had never hated its silence more. Then she made a choice, not with words, not with clarity, but with motion. She slung the rifle tight, scooped the smallest child into her arms and motioned to the other two. Stay close, don't let go. They obeyed. She crawled toward the gap in the wall, eyes darting to every shadow. The firefight roared louder, her team was breaking, pushed back. She could hear their voices, raw with strain. Her heart thudded in time with their cries. Every step forward felt like betrayal. Every heartbeat screamed her name in accusation. But she couldn't stop. The children stumbled on the uneven floor, their soft whimpers stabbing her heart. She steadied them with one hand, rifle clenched in the other. They reached a corridor, walls cracked and jagged. She paused, listening. Nothing but echoes of war outside. She whispered, this way, though she didn't know if it was safe. Her earpiece crackled again, the sergeant's voice hoarse and furious. Unit 2, report, where the hell are you? Her lips trembled. She couldn't answer, couldn't explain, couldn't confess that she had chosen differently. Silence was her only shield. The boy's small hand gripped hers, pulling. Hurry. She moved faster, guiding them through the ruins. Each corner felt like a test. Each shadow dared her to fail. And then she saw it. A tunnel, narrow, half-collapsed stone and wood beams broken but passable. A way out. Her chest rose with hope. If she could get them through, they could vanish into the hills, away from the compound, away from war. But hope was fragile. Because in that same moment she heard it, a scream in her earpiece, familiar, raw. A voice she knew. Her sergeant. Her knees buckled. She froze in the tunnel's mouth, children clinging to her legs. Her breath came in jagged gasps. One choice lay before her, escape with these children. Another, turn back and rejoin the fight. Both meant lives lost, both meant guilt. She sank against the wall, pressing her hand to her chest as if to hold her heart still. Memories surged, her brother's face, the funeral she never attended because she was deployed, the letters she never opened, the silence she carried for years. She had sworn she'd march for the forgotten, but now she was forgetting in real time, forgetting her team to remember these children, forgetting orders to honor ghosts. Tears blurred her vision. She hadn't cried in years, not in battle, not in loss, but here in the dark with small hands gripping hers she broke. The boy whispered again, are we safe now? Her chest burned, she wanted to say yes, but the word wouldn't come. Another explosion ripped through the night. The tunnel shook, dust raining down. The children whimpered, clinging tighter. And then footsteps, behind them. She spun, rifle raised. A figure staggered into view, helmet cracked, uniform torn. Her breath caught. Not the enemy. One of her own. His face was pale, blood streaked down his arm. He stumbled, eyes locking on hers. Recognition, shock. Where the hell were you?" he rasped. Her chest hollowed. No answer, no defense. Only the truth unspoken between them. His gaze dropped to the children. Confusion carved into his face. "You left us for them." His voice cracked between rage and disbelief. She swallowed hard, throat raw. "I couldn't." But the words died. Excuses felt poisonous. The soldier staggered forward, collapsing against the wall. His breathing was ragged, broken. "We're falling back. It's over." Her stomach dropped. Over. Her team, her mission, all unraveling. The children pressed into her side, silent but watching, always watching. She lowered her rifle. Her hands shook. The wounded soldier's eyes dimmed. His voice was barely a whisper. "We needed you." Then his head slumped forward. Her heart split. She reached for him, shaking, but his chest was still, lifeless. The children huddled closer, eyes wide, fear painted on their faces. And in that moment, something inside her crystallized. She couldn't undo what was lost. She couldn't save everyone. But she could choose, not out of orders, not out of fear, but out of something deeper. She whispered to herself, voice trembling but steadying with each word. "No more forgotten, not them, not us." Her hands clenched, her tears dried. She lifted the boy's chin, forcing his eyes to meet hers. "We're going to make it out," she said, not a promise, a vow. Outside, the battle still roared. Inside, the tunnel stretched forward, uncertain but waiting. She tightened her grip on the rifle, children at her side, ghosts at her back. And for the first time that night, she knew where she had to march. Not for glory, not for orders. For the living. What does it mean to keep a vow when the world around you is collapsing? That was the question tearing through her chest as she guided 3 trembling children into the tunnel's suffocating dark. The soldier's body lay slumped behind her, still and heavy, like a stone lodged in her heart. His last words echoed louder than the gunfire outside. "We needed you." Her boots crunched over debris as she forced herself forward. The children stumbled, their small breaths shaky in the silence. Every step felt like she was carrying 2 worlds, the one she abandoned and the one she still might save. The tunnel narrowed. She crouched low, pushing aside beams, dust raining over her shoulders. Her rifle scraped against stone, the sound sharp, too loud. The boy flinched. "Quiet," she whispered, though her own voice betrayed her rough cracking. The youngest girl clung to her vest again, tiny fingers gripping fabric like lifelines. She felt the tug with every motion. Her heart clenched tighter. Above them, the battle thundered. Explosions cracked the sky, muffled but close. Shouts in languages she half recognized bled through the stone. Her unit's voices were fatting. More enemy boots than friendly ones now. The mission was over. They had been outnumbered, outplayed. And she hadn't been there. Her throat burned with guilt, each swallow like glass. But she couldn't stop now. Stopping meant death for the little one staring at her with desperate, hollow eyes. The tunnel stretched on, but the air grew colder, damp. A low hum of wind whispered from the far end. An exit. She pressed her palm against the boy's back, urging him forward. Almost there. He nodded, lips pale, but his legs kept moving. They reached the end, a narrow crack spilling faint moonlight. She crouched, peering through. The outside was no safer. Hills rolled under pale starlight, shadows shifting with movement. Enemy patrols dotted the ridges, searching. Her pulse quickened. They couldn't walk out, not like this. She pulled back, mind racing. Options thin. She was trained to move unseen, to slip through shadows with precision. But 3 children, fragile, slow, untrained, every stumble would betray them. Her breath shuddered. She could carry 1, maybe 2, but not all. The thought of leaving even one behind sliced her open. No, not again. She pressed her head against the cold stone, eyes shut. Her brother's face flashed behind her eyelids, the way his voice cracked the last time she saw him alive. "Don't forget me." Her whisper trembled in the dark. "I won't, I can't." She opened her eyes steadier now. There had to be a way. The boy looked up at her, voice thin. "You're shaking." She forced a breath. "I'm not afraid." But she was. Not of death, not of the enemy. She was afraid of failing again. The ground shook, another blast outside. Dust fell in streams. The children whimpered and she hushed them quickly, covering their mouths. Voices approached, heavy boots close. Her pulse spiked. "Patrol." She motioned to the children, pressing a finger to her lips. Silent, still. The footsteps drew nearer, crunching gravel. Shadows crossed the crack of moonlight. She held her rifle steady, finger taut on the trigger. One step closer and they would see. One step closer and blood would spill. The girl whimpered. Her heart seized. She clamped her hand over the child's mouth, pulling her close, rocking gently as if silence could be a lullaby. The patrol paused, the boots shifted, a flashlight beam cut across the crack. Her breath caught. Seconds stretched like hours. Then the beam turned away, the footsteps moved on. She sagged against the wall, body trembling with relief. The children pressed tighter around her, their tiny frames shaking. She whispered, barely audible, "We're still here, we're still alive." But survival was not victory, not yet. The moonlight through the crack beckoned. A chance, a risk, the only one. She turned to the children, voice low, steady. "When I say run, you run. Don't stop, don't look back." The boy frowned. "What about you?" Her throat ached. She forced a smile she didn't feel. "I'll be right behind you." The lie tasted bitter. Because she knew if they ran, she'd have to stay, draw fire, be the shadow that bought them seconds. But she couldn't let them see that truth, not yet. She crouched, shifting the rubble just enough to widen the gap. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp. She checked her rifle, a full mag, one grenade, enough to make noise, enough to buy time. Her pulse slowed. Her decision was already made. The children's wide eyes glimmered in the moonlight. Fear, hope, everything in between. She swallowed hard, ready. They nodded, though their bodies trembled. She pushed the gap wider. Stones tumbled out, clattering too loudly in the silence. Her heart lurched, but no shouts followed. The path was open. She looked once more at the hills, the patrols shifting in the distance, then back at the children. Her chest burned as she whispered, "Go." The boy went first, crawling fast. The two girls followed, stumbling but determined. Their small forms slipped into the night, vanishing into the hills. She stayed at the crack, rifle raised, eyes locked on the patrols. The children's footsteps faded into the dark. Her lungs ached with every second. And then a voice cut through the night. Sharp, commanding, "Enemy." She froze. A patrol had spotted movement, shouts erupted, boots pounded. Her chest surged with panic, the children. She knew what she had to do. She hurled the grenade toward the opposite ridge, yanking the pin with trembling fingers. The blast tore the silence apart, light and fire ripping across the night. Shouts rose, soldiers rushing toward the explosion, away from the children. But in that chaos, one beam of light swung her way. A soldier at the gap, rifle raised. Her heart stopped. She fired first. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. The soldier dropped, crumpling. The shot echoed like thunder. Now they knew. Boots thundered toward her position. Voices shouted in frenzy. She turned once, just once, to glimpse the hills. The children were gone, swallowed by the night, safe for now. Her chest loosened, relief mixed with sorrow. She pressed her back to the stone, rifle steady. Her breath was calm now, almost peaceful. She whispered to the ghosts at her side, "I didn't forget." The footsteps drew closer, shadows flooding the tunnel. And she stood tall, waiting. Not for survival, not for glory, but for dignity. Why did the room feel louder in silence than it ever had in gunfire? She sat in the hangar's edge, boots unlaced, rifle disassembled in her lap like the final puzzle of a war she no longer wanted to solve. Outside, the sun was coming up. Pale orange light spread across the runway, touching the scars of metal, the burned marks of last night's extraction. The world moved on, but she was still inside that mission. Her hands trembled, not from fear, not from adrenaline, but from the weight of memory. Each piece of her weapon lay cold in her palms, and every piece whispered a name. Some she had spoken aloud, some only in silence. Voices that no one else carried, forgotten by command, forgotten by history, but not by her, never by her. Someone walked past, another soldier, laughing into a phone call, maybe to family. She envied him. She envied the lightness. She envied anyone who could walk away without ghosts pressing on their chest. But ghosts were all she had left. The commander found her still sitting there. He didn't salute, didn't lecture, just crouched down. "They're asking for your report," he said softly. She nodded, but her voice didn't come. Not yet. Reports were made of facts, but this war, it wasn't just facts. It was fragments of breath. A child's cry she still heard in her ears. The sudden silence when the comms cut. The way her spotter's hand had slipped from hers in that last firefight. "How do you put that in a report?" She looked at the commander finally. "Do they even care?" He swallowed, didn't answer. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he knew the truth was too heavy to say. She stood, gathering the weapon parts back into the bag, but not to carry it into war again. No, this was different. Each part was a story, a voice, a testament. She would not let them be statistics. Later that night, in the quiet of her quarters, she opened her journal. Pages already worn, ink smudged from nights like this. She began writing, not the mission report they wanted, but the one the forgotten deserved. Line after line, she wrote their names, wrote their laughter, wrote their fears. She wrote about the corporal who hummed an old country song while cleaning his rifle, the medic who joked about marrying a nurse back home, the translator who carried a torn family photo hidden in his vest. She wrote them alive again. Tears blurred the ink. She let them. It wasn't weakness. It was memory refusing to be erased. Somewhere deep inside, she realized she had survived not because she was stronger, not because fate was kind, but because she was meant to carry them, to march for them, to make sure their voices would not vanish into the dust of a forgotten war. The mission had ended. The war might end too someday, but her duty, this new duty, would never end. When she finally closed the journal, she sat back in silence. The lamp glowed warm, soft. Her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes were steady. And for the first time, she felt no need to explain herself. Because dignity doesn't need noise. It doesn't need medals. It doesn't even need to be seen. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.